The Eternal City, Rome, home to the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church, and home to the headquarters of its most controversial but least known organisation, Opus Dei. Secretive, notorious Opus Dei. The phenomenal success of Dan Brown's blockbuster novel, The Da Vinci Code, has thrust Opus Dei into the open. But Brown's not the only author to write about Opus Dei. Fiction and fact have collided.
There's the mythic Opus Dei, which is this bizarre, cult-like, ultra-powerful group. That's the Opus Dei of the Da Vinci Code. And then there's the Opus Dei of reality, which is this relatively small, relatively modest, not terribly influential Catholic group. That's the Opus Dei of my book. And by the way, guess, between Dan Brown and I, guess which one of us actually did better in the marketplace?
And what about the fact and fiction of Opus Dei nearer home? What's it like to belong to an organisation accused of being a cult? Devious, manipulative and sadistic. Some of its Irish members have now chosen to speak for the first time.
An evangelical Protestant can get his head round Opus Dei better than a lot of mainstream Catholics.
God is calling us all to a vocation. God is calling each one of us, doesn't matter who we are.
God is saying, come on, I want you fully, totally, your whole heart, everything that you have to give, I want you to give it to me.
Jesus has told us to go and spread the good news. So your faith is not a private thing. And Opus Dei emphasise very much that your faith isn't a private thing. Go out and spread the good news.
Well, my contention is that Opus Dei is like the Guinness Extra Stout of the Catholic Church, and by that I mean it's a strong brew. It's a collection of spiritual practices and very high expectations for excellence, both in one's secular profession and also in one's religious practice. It's also the kind of thing that on first taste tends to turn some people off. I mean, in that sense, it's very much an acquired taste.
Based on the controversial best-selling phenomenon.
You're in grave danger.
This is happening.
Can you break it?
Da Vinci. No matter what you believe.
What if the greatest story ever told is a lie?
No matter what you have heard.
You're saying all this is real?
Real enough to kill for.
Seek the truth.
Mankind can finally be set free.
The Da Vinci Code.
The headquarters of Opus Dei is not in Manhattan, as we're told in the Da Vinci Code, but here in Rome. Professor John Walk has become a somewhat reluctant expert at countering the book's inaccuracies. Harvard Scholar of Renaissance History, lecturer at the Holy Cross University, and Opus Dei priest.
My first reaction to the Da Vinci Code is more or less laughter. I got a kick out of it. I mean, I imagine it's something like if you were a real professional spy, what would your reaction be to reading a James Bond novel? You think, yeah, there's some truth in this. You know, there are spies in the world. England exists. You know, the Soviet Union used to exist, but the rest is more or less, you know, fantasy.
The great fresco by Leonardo da Vinci. My dear, if you would close your eyes.
Lee, save us the parlor tricks.
And to be honest, my big concern wasn't so much the place that Opus Dei has in the book, but rather the image of the church.
Mademoiselle, where is Jesus sitting?
It's pure fiction, but they may think, well, this must be true, or some of it's got to be true, and that's where the real deception occurs, I think.
Chalice? Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Considering both the Bible and standard Grail legends celebrate this moment as the definitive arrival of the Holy Grail.
Vatican correspondent and author John Allen travelled the world researching his factual book on Opus Dei. The intrigue around the organisation long predates the Da Vinci Code.
Well, I mean, Opus Dei has for decades been a subject of mystique and conspiracy theory and so forth in the Catholic Church. And so I think for any journalist, there's this natural lure to try to peel back the onion and see what's really there. I mean, it is supposed to be this ultra-wealthy, ultra-powerful organization that is involved in, you know, causing financial markets to rise and fall and deposing Latin American presidents and so on. And, you know, when you really dig deep into it, what you find is that this is a very small group, 85,000 Catholics worldwide. That's roughly the same number of Catholics in the Diocese of Hobart on the Australian island of Tasmania. You know, the only difference being nobody is writing potboiler novels about, you know, Australian Catholics dispatching albino monks to slay the enemies of the Church.
With the Da Vinci Code book and film exposing Opus Dei to a whole new audience, Professor John Walk started an internet blog. But even he was staggered at the response. 35,000 hits in a matter of weeks.
The blog is essentially a website where you can put up sort of like diary entries. The fun part of a blog is when a conversation begins between the author and the people who are reading it, or between the readers themselves. Sometimes I just step aside and let them go at it. Most of the interest, I think, in the blog has to do with what exactly is Opus Dei. It's a good thing, actually. I think that in the long run, the whole Da Vinci Code phenomenon will be something positive for Opus Dei because it's generated so much interest. One of the topics that generates most interest on the blog is corporal mortification. It's clear that that aspect of the life of the Church and of Opus Dei is something very foreign to many readers, many who are quite sympathetic to Opus Dei in general.
Corporal mortification, inflicting personal discomfort, even pain for perceived spiritual benefit, is by no means unique to Opus Dei. Some members use the Silus, a prickly, uncomfortable device worn around the thigh for 2 hours a day. They're following a tradition which includes St. Francis, Padre Pio and Mother Teresa. And the discipline, a braided cord for beating the back or shoulders once a week during prayer. But this isn't something most Opus Dei members do. In fact, only around 1/5 of them. Dublin interior designer Sheila Feely is one of that 20% in Opus Dei practising corporal mortification.
Okay, did you talk about the windows? Yeah. Well, the spirit of self-sacrifice, of self-denial, of penance that we live in Opus Dei is the same as that lived by any other practicing Catholic.
Anything that's original, sort of 1840s, will be kept, but if something's been replaced in the last 20 years, we'll just be replacing it again.
The idea of corporal mortification in Opus Dei is a minute part of our spirituality, I have to say. And in fact, if it were to disappear off our statute books tomorrow, would make no difference to how we sanctify ourselves, how we find our holiness. What's essential to Opus Dei are things like our secularity. What's essential to Opus Dei is sanctification of the ordinary, looking for God in the little things of every day.
So yeah, take off the fake anaglypta. Okay.
This is a refurbishment job, really, restoration job. A very old house, probably Victorian, 150 years old at least.
And obviously with a very thick underlay, I think.
I've been involved in a lot of restoration work actually over the years that I've been in interior design. I suppose as I've gone on, I've taken on a little bit more in the project. So originally I would have had a pure interior design role at the end of the project. Now I tend to take on more of a project management role.
Lismullen House in County Meath is Sheila's biggest commission so far. It's an Opus Dei conference and retreat centre. Every detail is finished to the highest standard. It also has 3 separate chapels inside and stonework rescued from an English monastery facing demolition.
We had Lismullen since 1962, I think, which is a long time, and we'd always known we wanted to develop it, to do more with it, so that it would be accessible to more people. so we came up with the idea of a new conference centre, which is what this facility is now. We hold all sorts of different things here, educational seminars, we hold spiritual activities like retreats and days of recollection, and we wanted somewhere where a lot of people could come and a lot of people could benefit, and that's exactly what we've got in this moment. One of the aspects of the sanctity or the holiness that we want to look for in Opus Dei is to find our sanctification by looking after everything well, and everything usually means the little things well. And what we wanted to do here was show a little bit of what Opus Dei is about through the structure of the building, through the materiality of the surroundings, and a lot of that boils down to finishing the details very well.
Lismullen didn't come cheap at £8 million, but the entire amount's being raised by voluntary subscription. Finance has always been an issue for Opus Dei critics. They say the group is hugely wealthy. And from the outset, its founder, Jose Maria Escrivá, made heavy demands on the income of its members.
I don't expect Opus Dei to support me. Don't expect the church to support me. I run my own company, which has nothing to do with Opus Dei, other than the fact that every now and then I'm lucky enough to get a conference centre like Lismullen. It's the only one so far to decorate. But outside of that, I'm completely self-supporting. So no, I don't give all my money to Opus Dei, but certainly I do give a lot of money to Opus Dei. In fact, I give any money I can to Opus Dei.
Sheila sees Opus Dei as her vocation, the personal call of God on her life. She's one of the 20% who've chosen to be celibate and live in community with other members. Some work full-time for the group. Others, like Sheila, have jobs outside. But she's clearly given up a great deal.
There's always a certain element of missing that. It's a relinquishment. You're saying no to the possibility of a husband and children, a friend and a husband. At the same time, there's more than enough compensations in the life I've chosen, and I'm very happy with it. I think part of that is because I have committed myself to it wholeheartedly, and in just the same way as in a marriage or no matter what you do in life, once you take the thing on freely and you choose something and then you say, this is it, this is my choice, I'm putting myself into it 100%, well, you get 100, you get 1,000% back from it in my case.
Ballymun, North Dublin, one of the city's most deprived areas. Just a few miles away, but a different world from Lismullen House. For 30 years, Ballymun's been home to Paddy Haughey, a member of Opus Dei and an Armagh man to his core.
I grew up on a small farm in Townland called Ballymacnab. It was so enjoyable out in the countryside and a very, very idyllic sort of background. There you go. So you were always mixing with people, and nobody at that time, there was nothing, bicycles were the mode of transport, and there wasn't that many cars, you know. You could play football on the Armagh to Dundalk Road with no trouble, but you couldn't hardly cross it now, you know, taking your life in your hands.
The most important things in Paddy's life are his family, his faith, and the youth club he runs. 80% of Opus Dei members in Ireland are like Paddy, family men and women with normal family responsibilities. His faith inspires everything he does. Not that he normally talks about it. In fact, this is the first time he's chosen to speak publicly.
Well, God has a plan to save everybody. There's a plan for everyone's salvation. There's pitfalls that we can all fall into that'll jeopardize that. And some of these kids have fallen into pits. So there's no reason why somebody can't pull them out of them. Craig, what are you doing? You didn't pay. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be afraid to talk to them about their faith, about the importance of the Mass, about the importance of the Rosary, you know, the importance of your spiritual life, the importance of your faith. I sort of picked up on the faith sort of very early, like, you know, like I remember my first communion particularly well, you know, and I was very impressed by it, you know. I often felt inclined, if I was around, to go to Mass on a weekday as well as a Sunday, but there was a bit of that was frowned down a bit on, that it was a bit too much, you know. People would have felt, is he going off the rails? Is he becoming over religious, or, you know, is he starting to slip mentally or something? You know, basically, like you didn't want to stand out from the crowd, like that was. You sort of kept within the limits.
Paddy had always hankered for more depth from his faith. He'd certainly heard of Opus Dei. They've been active in Ireland since 1946. But he thought it was an organisation for professional people, and he was a working man. It was after seeing a video of its founder, now saint, Jose Maria Escrivá, that he began to think differently.
To see the man in the flesh, like, and to hear him talking, and the sincerity of the man, and the no beating about the bush, like, you know, this is the faith, and this is, like, you know, this is what has been revealed by Jesus Christ, and either take it or you leave it, you know.
Un abrazo muy grande, otro, más fuerte aún. Sí. Y me diréis dónde se enciende la luz.
I felt like this is a dream come true. Here's people who can go to Mass every day without looking over their shoulder or feeling guilty or feeling worried of what their neighbours think of them, you know. They said the Rosary every day, you go to confession weekly, you know, and you get a bit of spiritual guidance regularly on a regular basis, you know. And it's really what the Catholic faith was about. And like as the founder said, like, if you want to know what the Opus Dei people are like, the early Christians, when they got the good news first, how did they react? Like they lived it to the nth degree.
The videos and his supporters portray Jose Maria Escrivá as a warm, gentle and loving man, helping people live a practical, day-to-day faith. His detractors say he was a foul-tempered megalomaniac. In some of the internet references to Opus Dei, now running into millions since the Da Vinci Code, the accusations are a lot more scurrilous. One Belfast man knew him well. In fact, Father Dan Cummings lived under the same roof as Saint Jose Maria for 10 years, until his death in 1975.
You think about it afterwards, really. It sort of suddenly dawns on you, and you sort of say, well, maybe I should have been more careful about this, or more attentive to the other thing, or taken more notes of the things he said and that sort of thing, you know, because really you're dealing with a figure who was into history. You're just one of the sort of observers or witnesses there, and you sort of say, well, maybe I should have done things a different way. But it was certainly a great experience. Looking back on it, you feel that, well, you've been very, very privileged. He was born in a small town in the north of Spain called Barbastro. At about the age of 15, he had a sort of what you might call a spiritual experience. He felt that God wanted him to do something. So what he did was he prayed a lot more, he went to the sacraments and he went to Mass frequently, and he decided that he would become a priest. And he went to the seminary, he studied there, and he was ordained in 1925. After that, not actually during the period of any of the spiritual exercises, he was reflecting in his room, looking over notes he had taken of things that he had considered. And he says that he saw Opus Dei. He saw that this was what God wanted him to do. Now, you may ask me, and a lot of people will ask, what exactly did he see? How did it happen? And the answer is we can't tell you because he didn't tell us. He did work with students. He started a small little sort of academy So the priests were ordained. There were 3 priests ordained in 1944, and then things began to expand a little. And so he went to Rome in 1946.
From Rome, Escrivá would oversee the worldwide expansion of what had been a purely Spanish organisation. An organisation that's not like any other. Not an order like the Dominicans or Franciscans. A small number of priests, yes, but Escrivá's vision was for lay people, living out their faith in the day-to-day secular world. But that very focus led to early controversy.
Well, in 1930s and 1940s Spain, Opus Dei was considered the radical left-wing avant-garde of the Catholic Church. This is because Escrivá broke with 2 things that were very much part and parcel of the Spanish Catholicism of his day. First was the heavy clericalism that said basically the role of the laity is to pay, pray, and obey. It's the job of the clergy to do all the thinking. Escrivá challenged that, and he said no, that to decide what a Christian politics or a Christian approach to law would look like, that's work for lay people to do, and clergy ought to restrict themselves to spiritual and doctrinal formation. The second was, Escrivá said that the church is not a privileged religious environment, that the religious environment really is the street. In other words, it's what you do in your daily life, it's what you do in the marketplace, in the boardroom, and so on. You know, that's where the religious work, so to speak, is done. The church is more like a filling station, where you pull in to get consolation. The idea is that the men and women of Opus Dei will take their place as ordinary lay men and women, working in banks and in bakeries and driving buses and so on, but will kind of radiate a Christian presence from within that very ordinary humdrum secularity, and in so doing transform it from the inside out. In that sense, he was seen as a radical reformer, and in fact, in the 40s, he was denounced to the Vatican for heresy, precisely on the strength of these 2 ideas. So one of the great ironies of recent Catholic history, actually, is that this group, that in its early days was seen as a kind of rebel, firebrand, troublemaking, you know, kind of progressive impulse, has come to be seen as the living incarnation of this ultra-conservative restorationist Catholicism.
Perhaps Ireland remains more conservative and more Catholic than we tend to think. With 800 Opus Dei members here, that's nearly twice as many as Great Britain. Charles Tyndall, ex-Marine, ex-investment banker, semi-retired farmer, and the man who organises Opus Dei activities in counties Donegal and Derry.
These are all hand-planted, these trees on the right here.
This is the first time he's spoken publicly about his role. For Charles, being an Opus Dei means being conscious of God for as much of the day as possible, and practicing what the founder called the apostolate of friendship.
No, just see if I don't think we'll bother to ask him, just... Opus Dei is an apostolic organisation, really. There's someone in there. It's interesting. People with problems, obviously everyone's got problems. I have problems, you have problems, and naturally we like to talk about our problems, discuss perhaps how we can best overcome these problems. This is all friendship, what any friend would do. So that's what apostolate is the apostolate of Opus Dei is apostolate of friendship, and we try and help people to perhaps raise the bar a bit. Prayer is quite a big part of our effort to come closer to Jesus Christ. So we do spend a certain amount of time in the day just talking to our Lord in our own words.
Members are expected to spend around half an hour, morning and evening, talking and listening to God, attend Mass daily and say the Rosary daily, and recite the noontime Angelus and various other daily prayers. They also attend monthly and annual events.
I probably come to Derry about twice in the month. in a fairly sort of natural way because I have friends here. And some time ago we decided that we'd set up this circle, or some people call it a prayer group, but it's really called a circle in Opus Dei.
The circle is at the core of Opus Dei. Charles will give a talk on basic Catholic doctrine, followed by prayer. A pattern repeated in Opus Dei circles throughout the world.
I'm just trying to do what God's asking me to do. I mean, I joined Opus Dei and I made a contract with Opus Dei to live God's work. And for me, God's work doesn't take me away from where I am or who I'm with. It just puts a different perspective on it, perhaps. When I'm talking to people, I suppose I'm aware that they're, like me, having to make an effort to improve in their spiritual life, improve in the sight of God.
The circle this week's been held in the home of crane driver John O'Neill.
John, how are you doing? Are you very well? Good. Beautiful evening.
Oh, it's lovely.
It is absolutely fantastic. I love all these animals.
Friends and acquaintances are coming this evening who aren't members of Opus Dei, but who are exploring their faith. They prefer we don't film the meeting.
And you are? No. Tonight I did not get lost. It's the first time I never got lost.
Well, 10 years ago I had a tragedy in my life, and a very good friend. My wife died very suddenly, and a very good friend introduced me to Opus Dei. He felt he had to do something to help me. And he didn't realise at the time what he was doing. But, well, maybe he did, but I didn't realise what he was doing. But it helped to pull me through a very sticky patch in my life. And I've moved on from that now, and I'm very happily married again, and life is good again.
Opus Dei has 19 centres throughout Ireland, none yet in the north. But there are regular events including circles, courses in doctrine and evenings of recollection. Kieran Doherty teaches in a Catholic grammar school.
Martin, that's a monkey.
His wife Marion's a nurse and they've 5 children.
Hello. Hello.
I personally attracted to Opus Dei because I met people in Opus Dei I like. I like their mindset. I like their commitment.
Come here. Oh, Martin, look. Penguin. Look.
When I took on board my faith and started taking it seriously, like most guys who are single, you know, you start to toy and entertain notions of maybe being a priest. It's the natural thing to do. If you're going to do it right, you know. And I just realised I didn't have the vocation. I didn't have the calling. Didn't have what it was to do that.
Here, get a picture, Martin.
Where's John?
Oh, yeah.
But then I came across Opus Dei and the teachings of Opus Dei.
Dear, we know what that is. There we go. Turn right.
And the teaching of Opus Dei was that holiness is for everyone. There's no second division. You know, the Pope in Rome, the nun in her convent, the monk in his cell, the teacher in the classroom, the guy driving the bus. Do you know, all of a sudden, it came to me then as fresh. Wow, hey, I'm as good as the next guy.
They're going to get their dinner, Martin. It's dinner time. Look. That's a big fat one.
Like one?
Look at the birds are going to...
Opus Dei is about helping people achieve holiness. Do you know, Opus Dei is about helping people grow closer to God and to do God's will, and therein find happiness, because that is where people will find happiness.
The organisation's been accused of treating women as second-class citizens. Yet more than half of the membership in Ireland is female.
Karen can do the potatoes and we all roast the meat, okay? I would say it has developed my spirituality, an aspect that I suppose I give a lot more thought to than perhaps I wouldn't have done in the past. I think it has helped me develop as a person overall. I'm just going to lift the roast meat into the pan and just sear it a little bit. Well, 3 years ago I nearly died. I was very seriously ill. I was in intensive care. Obviously having a life of prayer and people praying for you was certainly a great support, particularly when you're just at death's door. Everything else around you doesn't really matter except your family and your faith and your relationship with God. And it's a crutch in life. It's not a noose around our neck, it's just something that supports us in life. It's obviously something therefore you want to hand on to your kids that they can in turn in their lives, and when life is difficult and difficulties arise, as they always do in life, that they have some sort of support as well.
The Doherty's eldest daughter Claire is at university. She spent time in Opus Dei schools and colleges in Spain.
It's a translation about the problem of domestic violence in Spain, and I'm just putting it into English for one of my assignments. So yeah, I'm almost finished. I think my first experience of Opus Dei was when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I went with a youth group from Dublin. I went to a school just outside Barcelona. It was in a small town called Igualada. They were never pushy, or there was never any obligation, to take part in this. Like so many people say, Opus Dei have this reputation for being very demanding in that way, but everything was voluntary, and if you wanted to understand more about your faith, they would give you lessons, and you could participate in any masses or confessions or other religious services with them. And I think I learned a lot about myself as a person and just other people.
For every positive opinion of Opus Dei, it seems there's a negative. The most common reactions, both inside and outside the church, are suspicion and cynicism. And while some former members remain on good terms with the organisation, ex-members are also amongst its harshest critics.
Well, the first thing I would note is the volume of these complaints. I mean, as a journalist, if you hear something once or twice, you may be willing to dismiss it. But I mean, you hear something 24 times, 36 times, 100 times. I mean, you obviously have to take it seriously. And then there is an unusual number of ex-members of Opus Dei in various parts of the world who have come out of the organization complaining about what they saw as excessive control, as excessive demands for obedience, as a kind of almost spiritual blackmail. That is, that people came on very strong to try to get them to join and then threaten them with damnation and so forth if they were going to leave. And, I've heard this often enough in a variety of contexts that I have to think that there is something to it.
The Opus Dei Awareness Network is a focus for those opposed to the organisation. In the past, it has had complaints from former members in Ireland. Some told us they'd suffered extreme psychological and spiritual pressure and had been severely damaged by the experience. But they declined to be interviewed on camera about events 20 or more years ago.
It is also true that I've heard from thousands of satisfied Opus Dei members the world over about how liberating and joyful an experience this is. The only conclusion I can draw is not that one camp is lying and the other camp is telling the truth. I believe that by and large they are describing the same experiences, but seen from radically different points of view.
Whatever the point of view, it's clear that the world of Opus Dei in the 21st century is no longer hidden. It's become very public indeed, but its core values stay the same.
there's no change in what St. Josemaria preached in the 30s and the 40s as the spirit of Opus Dei. What I learned when I came to Opus Dei, what happened in the 60s and the 70s and right through, there's no change in that.
There do seem to be so many accusations and allegations out there, a lot of them involving former members of Opus Dei. Have all these people got it wrong, or have there been things that have gone awry in the past, perhaps?
Well, I'm not denying that there may have been mistakes, but the overall picture is that it's a very positive thing, and some of these people, they hold on to things and they blow them up beyond the reasonable situation that was there.
The worldwide impact of the Da Vinci Code can't be denied. The book's publishers claim it's the biggest selling novel of all time. And it has brought Opus Dei under scrutiny like never before. While the film and the book matter little to most Opus Dei members, the controversy surrounding the fiction has allowed a lot more of the fact to emerge.
Very nice print. Okay.
What I feel more than anything about the Da Vinci Code is that what it's saying about the Catholic Church is an awful shame. What it's saying about the Church is that it's composed of a band of liars, murderers, that it's been perpetrating some sort of a desperate lie for centuries, and that it's basically no good. And I think that is awful.
See, this is the thing about Catholicism. It's a church of sinners. That's what it is. It's a church of sinners. So if you find yourself a sinner, you know, you've come to the right place. And Opus Dei encourages the bad to be good and the good to be better. But one thing they actively discourage is for you to be satisfied with yourself.